Hey Thrift Crafters! So today's video is all about correspondences, part of our Witch 101 series. Um, Correspondences you will see in almost every online or text-based book regarding um, some type of magic or spell work. Basically, a correspondence is the way you're going to look at an item and say what part of the spell it's going to assist. Correspondences are supplemental tools to your basic tools. These are outside of the realm of, your knives and your candles and things like that. However, they all have symbolism. A few other words for correspondences are the meaning, the symbolism, the association, the aspect, the correlation. Any of these words, usually in a witchcraft sense, is talking about a correspondence. So what kinds of things have correspondence? Well, color has correspondence, scent, oils, alcohol, metal, minerals and stones, herbs. Your candles have associations. Your, whether or not you're using plastic versus wood has associations. Almost everything has associations, including our gods. Throughout a lot of polytheism, many people have different associations for the gods that they work with, and often these come directly from the folklore or the mythology surrounding that individual. So I have here in front of me, and I know you can't see it, but I have here in front of me a pile of both books that are published, I think mostly by Llewellyn. Yeah, mostly by Llewellyn, but I also have one by Wiser Books. And then I also have my handwritten correspondence books as well. So when you're looking at a correspondence, you're going to use these in spell work. So if you watched the previous video all about spell writing, you'll know that as you're writing a spell, you're going to pull up certain information that you need. You want to know, why are you doing it, the location of your target, and all of this. So where would you use this? You would use this in the area that talks about the specific parts of what your spell is going to be. When you decide that, say, you wanted to do a ritual for self-love, let's say it's a self-love bath. What you want to do is you want to find things that you associate with feeling happy and feeling good inside and making you look in the mirror and really appreciate and honor what you see looking back at you in your reflection. So how would you do that? Well, the first place would be to decide what kinds of things you want to use. Because I'm going to do a bath, I think I'm going to use some herbs because I can safely throw those into my bathtub and fish them out later. So let's start with my Scott Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs. This is not the only herbal book I have. I have two more on my shelf right back there, those short ones. Those are my other herbal books, and they come from a more medicinal standpoint, but this time I'd really like to have some magical associations. So I'm going to open it up to just a random page, and let's see what we have. So, perfect. Right away I open up to Colt's Foot, which is one of my favorite herbs to begin with. So in here, it tells me the folk names. It tells me the gender that it's associated with. Now remember, when we talk about things like gender and assigning gender to inanimate objects, usually it's not talking about specifically the gender of the plant in the way it reproduces. It's usually talking about the type of energy that comes off of it. When they say feminine, they really mean more light, airy, kind of along that lines of how, earth and water are often associated with the feminine, and air and fire sometimes associated with masculine, depending on the type of paganism you follow. Because we're talking mostly about witchcraft here, the gender is really up to you whether you utilize it or not, but because it is information that is out there, I do want to provide it. It also gives, a planet that it's associated with based on astrology, the element that it's aligned with, and then finally we get to powers, or what Scott calls the associations in this book. And so its powers are for love and visions. So we can translate that to all types of love and say psychic development. So, you know, a lot of times the way that they come up with these correspondences in these books are based on personal associations or they're based on folkloric associations. So if you're using colt's foot for a self-love bath, you're going to be using it by just kind of throwing it in the water with your other ingredients. You're kind of making yourself a tea to soak in. That's really all baths are. With associations, because they come from such obscure places, it is entirely 100% completely fine for you, to do your own associations. A lot of times when they're getting these associations, it's because, back in the day when, we didn't have pharmaceuticals, they would take colt's foot, and it was believed that if you, mashed it up and rubbed it on the injury, it would give you this, or it gave you a feeling of euphoria, or it, did this, or, it was believed to have done this. And that's where we get all these associations. So it was believed that if you hang mistletoe above your bed, it brings a baby when, that couple comes together in love. And so that is still kind of passed on today. It's the same in some Eastern European beliefs that if you cut an onion and you place it under your mattress, it'll pull away the sickness from you while you sleep. A lot of these things that you'll find are herbal cures that you'll find in, Farmer's Almanac or, Mother Earth News or any of those types of publications. They all come from old, trusted wives' tales and folklore. And there's a lot to be said for it. Now, granted, some of it is a placebo, but on the other side, a lot of it actually has a lot to do with how the earth is. It's very healing. So when you're looking at associations, you want to take into account, can you receive that item easily? So I don't want to flip through here and find something that I know I can't get. So let's see, orris. It's a type of iris. I know for a fact I do not have these here. And so it's going to be very, very difficult for me to find this ingredient. So when you're picking a correspondence, you want to make sure that you're picking an item that you actually have access to. So like right here, here's an easy one, mustard. I know I can go to my grocery store and I can pick up some mustard without any worries at all, because you can use store-bought items. It's completely fine. So moving away from herbs a little bit, you also can have correspondences with crystals and metals. It's very common for people to throw an aventurine in their pocket because they want to bring on prosperity. You'll see a lot of people wearing like hematite rings to try and, offer a little bit of protection for themselves. Even my star symbol that I wear is a form of protection. I'm actually wearing some extra symbolism today. I've got my triskelion and my triquetra and then a Celtic knot on, and those all have different meanings and associations for them as well. Within all different types of things can have associations placed on them. You also have things like the Spellcasters Reference, which is really interesting, and it talks about timing. So it kind of gives you correspondences for each month of the year. So we are in May right now. So according to this book, the colors of May are brown, green, and pink. Its number is 5 because it's the 5th month of the year. And then it has a bunch of stones, animals, plants, incenses, deities, and I don't know what to call these. Middle spiritual beings, I guess. Middle grade spiritual beings like elves and fairies, and some other things that they associate with the month of May. And then if you go further back, it tells you about, what to do during, sun correspondences or the nighttime, or if you live in Alaska, it actually says, if you're utilizing like the nighttime sun, it actually gives you correspondences for that, which is pretty neat. And then it gives you a bunch of correspondences for if you want to do a spell for willpower. You would cast it on a Sunday, the first hour after sunrise, while the sun is in Aries, Leo, or Scorpio. So it allows you to really kind of focus in on what it is that you want to do. And it's not just these standalone reference guides that are going to have good correspondences in them for you. It's going to be, other books that are very beginner friendly, like, the Grimoire for the Green Witch. It's going to have associations and correspondences in the back. So it gives you a little bit of stuff to focus on. Tarot books are also very good for providing associations because they often include those symbolisms in their cards, depending on the artist and the author. So that brings us to, what if you can't have access to any of these items? What if you can't get these books? I've collected these books over many years, and I was only ever able to get them when my budget allowed, or I found them at a yard sale, or a friend gifted them to me, as is the case for my Anne Mora text. I'm 99% sure. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I gave that one away. But a lot of times when you go to write your own correspondences, let me get to the right worksheet. When you write your own correspondences, you're going to be journaling them. This is my Herbalism Journal. I've had this book for 5 years now, and it's still not done, mostly just because I get lazy and don't work on it. You can kind of turn it into a specific book of shadows. So here you'll see that I put some of my plants on it that I've collected, just different, like a 4-leaf clover and some ivy because of my name that I've put in here. And then on each page, I started with sage. That was the page that I started with. I put some of the herb on it so that I knew what it looked like. And you see the same thing in a lot of those published texts. And all I did for this was I went, and anytime I found information about the herb, I would write it down on that page. And then the same thing is going to be said for this book, which is my stones book. And I like to have them in separate books because otherwise I'm just going to go through paper like crazy. And this I just started this year, so it's nowhere near even done. It's just literally got a table of contents in it right now. So when you go to write your own personal associations, the things you're going to want to know are, what plant are you holding in your hand? Especially if you've gone out into your backyard or out into the woods and just picked it up. What is it? So you want to know exactly what it is. If you're unsure, don't pick it up. Leave it. Wait until you're more educated and knowledgeable. Get a local or regional plant guide. Get a local stones guide. Simon & Schuster's has an excellent rocks and minerals guide. And then you want to start observing the plant or item. What does it smell like? Does it have a smell? What does it feel like? Is it soft? Is it rigid? Is it rough? Is it, squishy? What does it taste like? Now, please only do this for known edibles. Please do not go and pick up a random plant off the side of the road and throw it in your face. Because A, it's not safe. B, it's filthy. And C, it could be poisonous and you could end up dead because you were curious what this little green thing tasted like. So please don't do that. What does it sound like? So sound, you're more going to use for things like seashells, or if you're doing bells, or if you come across, a little seed with a little rattle on the interior. What kind of associations does that give you? So what do you think of when you see the item? If you see a seashell, do you remember, Lake Michigan as a kid? Or do you remember going to the beach down in Florida? When you say the name of the item, does it bring up any emotions for you? When you think of the item, does it bring up any emotions? Does it give you any feelings of associations with it? So, for me, like when I hold a paintbrush, I was painting yesterday. When I hold a paintbrush, I think of my mom. So to me, paintbrushes could equal creative love. They could also equal motherhood associations, because I associate that with my mother, because watching her paint as a child was very meaningful to me. What do you associate with the item? When I pick up a pen, I think of my best friend and how she and I bonded over our love for writing. So for me, thinking of a pen brings up friendship. So I'm able to associate that with friendship. Is there any mythology behind the item? A lot of times herbs have a lot of mythology. Take the herb hyssop, for example. I actually have that as my second page. And this is actually mentioned in the Christian Bible, I believe in Psalms, and it's a very popular healing herb as well. Very good for purification and protection. Are there any medical uses for the item? Now, when you are writing down medical uses, please make sure you know that these are medical uses. You're not going to experiment with this. You want to go and kind of utilize some of the information already provided. Unless you are educated enough and have all those fancy, PhD degrees allowing you to decide what something does in a scientific sense, please don't make up medical uses for an item and pass them off as fact. That's not safe for others that might look up to you for information. What is the folklore behind the item? Is there an old wives' tale associated with it? And then do you have any personal history to the item? Did you plant it when you were a kid? So these are just the basic ways that you come up with your own associations. And then you can also do the same thing for deity. Deity also have associations given to them. Take Aphrodite, for example. She's given the association of being one for love and self-image and self-esteem and romantic love and things of that nature. And then on the opposite, you have, maybe you have Hecate. Hecate, and she is the goddess of, pathways and transitions and, the goddess at the crossroads and all of those types of things. So the more you know and the more you research, the more you're able to come up with your own associations. You'll also hear a lot of people talk about unverified personal gnosis, or UPG. And the same thing can be utilized for correspondences, of personal correspondences. At some point or another, all the correspondences that these books use, all the correspondences that we use across our witchcraft have come to us through ourselves or through another person sitting down and doing the same thing. So correspondences are going to be the thing that you look at regarding an item or object that allows you to help connect better to that emotion or desire. So if you want to do a spell for self-love, you're going to look at items. Maybe pink makes you think of love. Maybe, lavender flowers make you think of love. Roses, chamomile flowers. These types of things make you feel loving and lovely. And so you're going to utilize them in that way. If you have any questions, please let me know. This one was a little bit, of an obscure video because I don't see people talking about correspondences very much. And I want to make sure that everyone kind of understands throughout this series that it is a basic 101 series. I'm not going to go into depth on a lot of stuff. I'm going to give you, again, the tools you need to get started on a pagan or witchcraft path. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any comments or questions, and I'm happy to assist with that. I'm working on a personal associations worksheet so that you guys have a resource, but it's probably not going to be done by the time this video is published. So I apologize, and I hope that I will see you guys again real soon. The next video we are going to do is going to be spell casting. We already did spell writing and gathering of materials with the correspondences, and so now we're going to move right into my version of spell casting, which will be the next video. So I'll see you guys soon, and enjoy your day.